What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to JohnnyKpicks. And in this video, I'll be going over my full card, picks and predictions, along with my bets so far for UFC 277, Pena versus Nunes 2. First things first, please hit that like button, make friends with that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of my new videos or live streams. So UFC London was yesterday, and I'll be honest, definitely wasn't as good as the first London card. And there was only like 2 really good fights in that whole card. But with my picks, I ended up going 8-6, and with my bets, I ended up winning plus 1.72 units. If you follow my tracked bet on Bet MMA Tips, there is an error on there with mine because I accidentally put the wrong fight for one of my bets. I accidentally selected the Mokaev-Johnson fight not to go the distance, but I really had the Amirkhani and Pierce fight not to go the distance. So I'm not trying to cheat or anything, I promise you. I'm showing my bet slip up here. It's right here, so I'm not cheating. But I did end up winning a little bit on the night, so we got a little streak going. Let's go. And as I said, there were only 2 performances of the night that I really thought were good, and that was the UFC darling duo of Molly McCann and Paddy Pimblett. With McCann, this was kind of a layup fight, and I'm glad that she did finish Goldie the way she did because, like I said, they were 2 different levels of fighters. One probably is on the cusp of not being in the UFC, and the other one is on the cusp of being ranked. So Molly McCann came in there, she looked really good again, and she did a spinning back elbow, fist, whatever it was. So I guess lightning does strike twice. And with Paddy, that was a good win by him. And as usual with Paddy fights, he kind of looked a little in trouble in the first round, but in the second round hit, he took over, he used his grappling effectively, and he ended up getting the submission. And guess what? He teabagged Jordan Levitt. So, but hey, he did what he said he was going to do, and that was a good win for him. And the unfortunate injury of Aspinall. So this will be 2 weeks in a row that in the main card there was a fluke injury, but this one sucks a little bit more than the last one because at least in the Yair Ortega fight, Yair looked like he was winning that first round, and it kind of happened at the very end of it. This one happened 15 seconds, and there was 2 or 3 punches thrown, and it just fluke injury, blew out his knee, and yeah. And it sucks because he was an up-and-coming prospect in the heavyweight division. He's going to be out probably close to a year now, and who knows if he'll ever be the same. He might not even be as quick anymore, and that was one of his good qualities. So it's unfortunate, but that's MMA for you. What are you going to do? But all right, guys, let's get to my picks and predictions for UFC 277. The first fight we have is Orion Cosce versus Blood Diamond. Cosce is 7-1, 28 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. And Blood Diamond is 3-1, 34 years old, 5'11", with a 76-inch reach. Okay, so we have a wrestler versus striker showdown here. Cosce is going to have the grappling and wrestling advantage for sure, and Blood Diamond is going to be the better striker. I will say though, Cosce does have decent striking and power, but he's mainly going to grind on you. He wants to get you down to the ground and maybe submit you or do some ground and pound and get a potential knockout. And with Blood Diamond, he's a kickboxer. He has tons of kickboxing experience, but his MMA experience is a little low. I think this will be his 5th MMA fight. And for me, this breakdown's really simple. If this fight plays out on the feet, it's going to be Blood Diamond all day. If this fight does get to the mat, I think Cosce will end up finishing him one way or another. But for my pick, I'm going to say Cosce does get Blood Diamond to the mat. I think he'll be able to eventually take him down, maybe up against the cage and work for a takedown. And once that happens, I can see him getting a finish here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Cosce wins this one by a submission. Moving on up the card, we have Negumereanu versus Ior Potieria. Nick is 12-1, 27 years old, 6 foot with a 78-inch reach. And Ior is 20-2, 26 years old, 6'3", with a 75-inch reach. So this is going to be a fun fight, and both these guys have the same similar styles. They're both strikers. They both have a lot of power. Both of them aren't really technical strikers, but they like to push forward, and they're both aggressive. And honestly, both these guys can be hittable at times. So this is just like a weird fight to break down because they're both like the same exact fighter in my eyes. But I'm going to lean on the Negumereanu side here, just with his UFC experience. And I do think he'll be able to push forward and maybe get Eeyore to fold under the pressure, since this is his UFC debut and it will be in a stadium with a whole bunch of people. So with my pick here, I'm going to lean Nick to win this one, and I'm going to say by decision. Next fight we have is Ji Yeon Kim versus Jocelyn Edwards. Kim is 9-5-2, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. And Edwards is 11-4, 26 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Okay, so both these fighters are strikers. That's all they are. They're not going to go on the ground. They're not going to try to grapple with you or wrestle. They want to stay on the feet, and they want to strike. Both fighters do throw a lot of volume, but I will say that Kim has the more technical striking. Edwards does like to use her kicks more to keep at range, but if you get inside that kick range, she's not as good, and she's very hittable. And there's a whole bunch of red flags for me with Edwards here. She's taken this fight on short notice. In her last fight, she fought at featherweight, and she's normally a bantamweight, and now she's moving down to flyweight, and that was only a month ago. Not to mention, she fought Pasquale in her last fight, and she didn't look that great. She potentially could have lost that fight. It was fairly close, so I don't know about this one. I like Kim here. I think she's going to be able to outstrike her. And if you remember in Kim's last fight, she kind of got robbed. She outstruck Cachoeira almost 2-1, and somehow the judges saw it a different way. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Kim wins this one, and she wins by decision. Next fight we have is Michael Morales versus Adam Fugitt. Morales is 13-0, 23 years old, 6 foot with a 79-inch reach. And Fugitt is 8-2, 33 years old, 6'1", and I'm not sure his reach. Okay, so Fugitt is making his UFC debut and taking this fight on short notice, but he's a solid wrestler with pretty good boxing. And Morales is a very well-rounded fighter. He has very good striking, very good wrestling, very good grappling. And I'm just going to make this breakdown kind of short because I really like Morales in this fight. I just think he has Fugitt beat in every department. I just don't see how Morales is going to lose this one, to be honest. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Morales wins this one by knockout. Moving on up the card, we have Drakkar Klose versus Rafa Garcia. Klose is 12-2-1, 34 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. And Garcia is 14-2, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Okay, so the trend of the card continues. Rafa is taking this fight on short notice, but Rafa has good striking and good wrestling, and he likes to push forward. His cardio can be iffy at times, but he still likes to push forward, and he doesn't completely gas out. And with Klose, he has very good boxing, and he showed it in his last fight against Jenkins, but he also does have decent wrestling himself. And when I first looked at this matchup, I was kind of going back and forth with this one, but I ended up going with Klose here. I just think his striking is going to be the key in this fight. I think he'll be able to keep this fight standing, and if that's the case, I just think he'll outstrike Garcia for 3 rounds here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Klose wins this one by decision. Next fight we have is Don'Tale Mayes versus Hamdi Abdelwahab. Mayes is 9-4, 30 years old, 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. And Hamdi is 3-0, 29 years old, 6'2" with a 73-inch reach. Okay, once again, Hamdi will be making a short notice appearance and his UFC debut. Hamdi is going to be more of a wrestler. He's actually wrestled in the Olympics, so that alone tells you that he is a very good wrestler. But he also does have okay striking with power. And with Mayes, he's a decent striker himself with power, but he did show in his last fight that he does have wrestling and good top control. But for me, I think Mayes needs to keep this fight standing for sure. And this is a little bit of a weird fight to predict, but I'm going to go with Mayes here. I think that his experience, and he's going to be the bigger fighter in this matchup, I think he'll be able to keep this fight standing and eventually be able to gas Hamdi out in maybe the second or third round and get the win. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Mayes wins this one by a knockout. Next fight we have is Drew Dober versus Rafael Alves. Dober is 24-11, 33 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. And Alves is 20-10, 31 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Okay, so this should be a fun fight here. Dober is going to be a striker with tons of power, and he's very durable. And Alves is a kind of a well-rounded fighter. He does have decent striking and really good grappling with submissions, but he doesn't really have great wrestling. He doesn't really go for takedowns. So the majority of the time that he grapples is if he gets taken down or he like jumps a guillotine or something like that. But in this fight, I'm going to pick Dober here. I think the first round will be pretty competitive, and it's actually the most dangerous because Alves tries to go for the finish in the first round, and if he doesn't get that finish, he does tail off as the fight goes on. And I know Dober's lost a few times by submission in his losses, but I don't think Alves will be able to finish Dober here. I think this fight will stay on the feet, and if that's the case, Dober is going to outstrike him and potentially get the knockout. But with my pick, I'm going to say Dober wins this one, and I'm going to say by decision. Moving on up the card, we have Alex Morono versus Matt Semelsberger. Morono is 21-7, 31 years old, 5'11 with a 72-inch reach, and Semelsberger is 10-3, 29 years old, 6'1 with a 75-inch reach. All right, so this is actually a very interesting matchup. Morono is a well-rounded fighter. He's got pretty good striking, he's got pretty good grappling, and pretty good wrestling. And with Semelsberger, he has good striking with power. And he did show some decent wrestling in his last fight against Fletcher, but that was a very close fight that could have went either way. And if you also remember in that fight, after the first round, Semelsberger looked really gassed and he was struggling a bit. So maybe that's why he went to his wrestling, because he couldn't stand with Fletcher anymore. And I'll be honest, I'm a little shocked at where the line's at. I thought this fight would be a little bit closer to a pick'em. But with my pick, I'm going to lean Morono here. I think the first round will be very competitive, but as the fight goes on, I think Morono will start to take over and outstrike Semelsberger. Semelsberger has a shot at maybe a first round knockout, but Morono's pretty tough. So with my pick, I'm going to say Morono wins this one by decision. Okay, main card time. We got Magomed Ankalaev versus Anthony Smith. Ankalaev is 17-1, 30 years old, 6'3 with a 75-inch reach. And Smith is 36-16, 34 years old, 6'4 with a 76-inch reach. All right, so open up the main card. This is going to be a very good fight. So Ankalaev is a striker mainly, but he does have wrestling that he can use. And Smith is also a very good striker, but he has really good grappling that he can use. But the thing about that is his takedown defense isn't great at all, and it's at 48%. But on the feet, I'm going to give Ankalaev the edge. I think his striking is a little bit more diverse. He likes to use his kicks. But Smith does have good jabs, and he can stay at range and pick his opponents apart. And on the mat, I think Ankalaev is going to have the clear wrestling advantage. If he uses his wrestling here, he'll be able to get Smith down, but he'll just have to worry about the submissions because Smith does have a pretty good submission game and he's got a good amount of submission wins as well. So for my pick, I'm going to pick Ankalaev to win. I do think it'll be closer than the line says, but I just think Ankalaev has the clear wrestling advantage, and if he's ever in trouble on the feet, he can use that and take him down and just get points that way. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Ankalaev wins this one by decision. Next fight we have Alexandre Pantoja versus Alex Perez. Pantoja is 24-5, 32 years old, 5'5 with a 68-inch reach, and Perez is 24-6, 30 years old, 5'6 with a 65.5-inch reach. So this is going to be another fun fight to watch. Both these guys are super well-rounded. They got good striking, wrestling, and grappling. I'm going to give Pantoja the striking and grappling advantage, though. I think his striking is a little bit more technical, and he has way better submission skills than Perez. But in the wrestling department, I'll give Perez the advantage. He does have good takedowns, and Pantoja's takedown defense is only at 68%. But a little red flag for me is Perez hasn't fought in about a year and a half, but that was mainly because of all his canceled fights. I think he had like 5 or 6 canceled fights between that time. But I got Pantoja here. I just think his striking is going to be too much for Perez on the feet. And if this fight does get to the mat, Perez is going to have to be careful he doesn't get submitted when he's on the ground. And another thing to note, in Perez's 6 losses, he's been submitted 4 times. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Pantoja gets it done, and I'm going to say he gets it done by a submission, maybe like a club and sub, or maybe like some weird guillotine when Perez tries to take down Pantoja. Moving on up the card, we have Derek Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovich. Lewis is 26-9, 37 years old, 6'3 with a 79-inch reach, and Pavlovich is 15-1, 30 years old, 6'3 with an 84-inch reach. Okay, so this is going to be a fun fight for however long it lasts. But like most heavyweights, both these guys are strikers with tons of power. But the difference for me is Lewis is super slow. He's super low volume. He likes to wait back and pick his spots to unload his strikes. And sometimes that works out for him, and then again, sometimes it doesn't. And Pavlovich is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, and he's definitely going to have the speed advantage. But I really like Pavlovich in this fight. I think his speed's going to be too much for Lewis here. And with that 5-inch reach advantage, I just don't see how Lewis can get close to him unless he just goes all out and gasses himself out. So I don't see that happening either. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Pavlovich gets this one done, and it gets this one done by a knockout. Okay, co-main event time here. We have Brandon Moreno versus Kai France. Moreno is 19-6-2, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. And Kara France is 24-9, 29 years old, 5'4" with a 66.5-inch reach. Alright, so honestly, this is probably going to be my fight of the night that I'm looking forward to the most. Both guys are really good strikers. I will say Moreno probably has a little bit of a wrestling and grappling advantage, but Kai France has very good takedown defense, and if you do take him down, he's very good at defending the submissions. I don't think this fight's going to go to the mat at all. I think it's going to play out on the feet. And both these guys fought earlier in their career, and it was a very close competitive fight, and Moreno ended up winning that one. But since that fight, both fighters have been on a roll here, and this is a tough one to predict, but I'm going to go with Moreno here. If this was a 3-round fight, I might go with Kai, but since this is a 5-round fight, I do think Moreno's experience in those fights will shine here, and I do think he'll be able to win the later rounds. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Moreno wins this one by a decision. Okay, main event time here. We have Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes. Pena is 11-4, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. And Nunes is 21-5, 34 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Okay, so we got another rematch here, and I'll be honest, Nunes is the better overall fighter here. She's going to have the striking advantage and the power advantage as well. The grappling and wrestling could be close, they can cancel each other out, but Pena is tough and durable, and she showed that in her last fight when she subbed Nunes. And the way Nunes fought that fight was very weird to me. I kind of think that she just didn't take this fight super serious because she's been so used to steamrolling a lot of these fighters. And when she wasn't able to knock out Pena in the first round, I think she just gassed herself trying to. And I don't think this is going to happen again. I think we're going to have a more focused Nunes. She probably worked on her cardio for sure. And I don't think she's going to take Pena lightly here like she did last time. And I'm not saying Pena doesn't have a chance to win this fight. She clearly showed that she can do it. But I think she's going to have to kind of do the same exact thing she did last fight. She's going to have to push the pace. She's going to have to tire out Nunes. But if she can get this fight to the mat, she'll have a really good chance. But on the feet, I just think it's going to be Nunes all day. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Nunes wins this one. And I'm going to say by knockout in the later rounds. Alright guys, those are my picks and predictions for UFC 277. So let's jump right into my bets so far for UFC 277. The first bet I have is an underdog bet. I bet 1 unit on Kim to win, and I got that at plus 105. So I know I said I shouldn't be betting on women's MMA fights, but I think this is a clear win for Kim here. She's going to be the better striker, and I do think after the first round, Kim should be able to take over the fight. And as I said in my predictions, Edwards is taking this fight on short notice. She's going down a weight class that she normally fights in. And in her recent fight, she didn't look that great against Pasquale. To put it nicely, Pasquale is barely a UFC fighter. And in Kim's last fight, she should have won. She outstruck her opponent. So I like Kim here at plus money. And the second bet I have is another underdog bet. I bet 1.25 units on Pavlovich to win, and I got that at plus 105. So this is going to be real simple. Speed kills, and Pavlovich is going to have the huge speed advantage along with a 5-inch reach advantage, and I just don't think Lewis is going to be able to do anything about that. And I know Lewis is always dangerous to get that knockout, but he's going to have to get real lucky, kind of like the Curtis Blades fight to win this one, because I think Pavlovich is going to push a pace on him and push him up against the cage, and after that it's going to be over shortly after that. So I like Pavlovich, especially at plus money. And the third bet I have is a 2-fighter parlay. I bet 1.25 units on Pantoja and Ankalaev to win, and I got that at plus 102. So both of these guys I feel like are the better overall fighters. in their matchup, and they both have clear advantages to win this fight. For me, Pantoja is going to have the better striking and grappling, so if he keeps this fight standing, I think he'll be able to win this one, and he could potentially get a submission win over Perez. And Ankalaev has the wrestling advantage, so if he gets in trouble on the feet, he could definitely use his wrestling and score points that way. So both these guys should get the victory pretty easily. Alright guys, those are my picks, predictions, and bets so far for UFC 277. Please hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Also, don't forget to check back in the comment section of this video or on my Instagram page for any added bets throughout the week. I hope everybody enjoys the fights this weekend, and until next time, happy fight night.